Hey, folks, welcome to InTheMoneyStocks.com's intraday analysis video, brought to you by the creators of proprietary price, pattern, and time methodology. Learn the PPT strategies and you just profit for life. That's simple, folks, again, when you learn these methods. Today's date, Thursday, February 13th, 2014. Markets opened up sharply lower but rallied very, very quickly. I'm a little surprised by how strong the rally was. It's not surprising to see the markets go back to the flat line for me, but more so to see the markets continue to extend their gains. And there's only one thing to blame here, and I'll tell you exactly why the markets have been able to continue up. It's basically because of the snowstorm. All right, the whole East Coast has been getting absolutely annihilated, and everything's come to a standstill. So what does that mean? Well, you might say, well, how come the snowstorm has an impact on the markets, and why does it actually help the markets? Well, the bottom line is this. There's no one working today from basically Boston, Maine, down to D.C., North Carolina, South Carolina, Atlanta. All right, everyone's off, which means traders aren't in trading. The volume is absolutely anemic today. Super, super light. And we all know when volume is very light, it caters to the upside. So basically, when the markets gapped down this morning, the markets had very little chance of actually holding that drop because there wasn't any sell pressure. All right, the sell pressure comes from institutions, right? They're the ones that are selling into it, while the little investor continues to say, "Oh, the buy the dip mentality is still intact. We have a pullback here over the last couple weeks. This is my time to buy, 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 buy." So they're the ones buying, and the sellers that would mitigate or negate or even cause the market to go lower are not at work today. They're not working today. So essentially, you have the buy the dip mentality average buyers, and that's just continuing to float this market up. And right now, we have a nice gain on the SPY of about $1.10. S&P 500 is up 10.5 points. Dow's up 69.5. Nasdaq's up about 37.5. And I think the Nasdaq would close at a new all-time high today. We're not seeing the same follow-through in the S&P yet, nor in the Dow, nor in the Russell 2000 or Russell 5000. But ultimately, we are seeing that the markets are higher today. And you might say, well, where's the market headed? Well, at this stage, considering where we are, considering tomorrow's the day before a 3-day weekend, you got to anticipate that the volume will continue to be light tomorrow. Number one, you have this spot right here, which we're not that far away from. This is probably where we're going today, which is a gap window. And the gap window is going to be the 183.40 level. And then if you get above that, there's a minor level here, but the big level is going to be this gap fill at 184.35. All right, so this really becomes the key kind of pivot area. One thing to watch here, we have a little bit of a trend line here, which I can actually take off the charts for now. But for now, these are your two levels to watch. Number one, again, is on the spiders, 183.40, we'll call it. And the next one's 184.30. Okay, so those are what you're looking at, and again, considering the holiday coming up, considering everyone's in a jovial mode, I could see the float up continuing for a good portion of the remainder of today, and then early tomorrow, I think, as well. I do think towards the end of tomorrow you might get a little bit of profit taking ahead of the 3-day weekend, but that's really up in the air. I would say it favors it slightly to see that profit taking, but the profit taking would be minor. I mean, maybe a pullback of 50 cents on the spiders towards the end of the day tomorrow, as opposed to, we're already up $1.10 today, and who knows what will be up earlier tomorrow before that could start. Okay? All right, so that's what we have going on here in respect to that. Let me take a look here. Trying to see what else we want to talk about here. A couple stocks that are showing some signs of life today. Apple up about $8.60. If we flip over to the Apple Daily, we are up into the 50 MA on Apple. But I think Apple might have a little bit more upside. See this gap fill right here, guys? I think this is where Apple's probably going into tomorrow. So I actually, interestingly enough, even though overall in the net scheme of things, I'm bearish on the markets and I'm looking to accumulate some more shorts and so forth, you have to say that there could be a little bit more upside in Apple just because of this. And I might consider shorting it there. I think that would be a very, very good level if it gets there just as major resistance, because basically that's where it was before they reported earnings. So there's going to be a lot of sellers that were holding that will want to take some profits. And it might just be a 1 or 2 day swing trade short, but I actually do think that will have some nice power to it. Google today up 11 and change. Google is at a new all-time high at $1,200 per share, so that's kind of interesting. Priceline has continued to excel here, guys. Priceline, look at this chart here on Priceline. I don't even have this anymore. I used to be short and I took some money on it. I took a little bit of profits when we dipped all the way down here, but I've been out of it, and I am contemplating reshorting it, though. I have to say, I think earnings are next week, which is the one small thing why I may want to avoid it in the short term. But I will continue to follow this very, very closely. It actually looks like it could be topping out today in the short term, maybe with a little bit more tomorrow, but minor. And again, there's a couple PPT methodology factors here at work that if you've taken our courses, you know exactly what we're looking at on this side. All right. Chevron, let's take a look at Chevron getting a little bit of a bounce. This stock has had a very small bounce considering the fall. One of the weaker stocks out there, still only up 62 cents today. Same thing with ExxonMobil. Exxon is still struggling quite a bit. Other stocks out there struggling, RIG, RIG. I moved out of that yesterday for a small profit, and that was the smart thing to do as it collapsed yesterday. And then today it's only flat on the day, really. So continued action there. Amazon's getting a little bit of a bounce after a pretty ugly sell-off yesterday, but this is still an ugly chart, folks. All right, there's so many broken charts. I know there's a lot of euphoria out there again, but for me, I just follow simply the charts, and that's how we've made money. That's how we called the top on the market in January, the bottom in early February here for the bounce, and now this is why I'm slowly starting to accumulate some shorts again. And again, many people will say, oh, you're crazy to accumulate, market's so strong, XXXXX, whatever you want to say, but I just follow the charts. Emotion, that's what that is. That's nonsense. That's for pikers, and we just want to follow the charts, and that's how we make money. There's a reason why the net return in the Research Center Hot Charts and Alerts was over 500% last year. Already this year up about 45-50% just in the first month and couple weeks. And so I just have to follow that through. You just have to kind of ignore all that nonsense, which is the swaying from the institutions trying to get the average piker on board to the long side, and just look at the actual charts. And when you do that, I really think that you follow through and you can kind of see what's going on in truthfulness here. All right. A couple other things. Boeing having a little bit of a bounce. Boeing, if it moves up into this gap fill on a pierce to the 50, still has a ways to go, but that would be your shorting opportunity there on the chart, and I will be following that. Let me take a look at FedEx. FedEx is, wow, FedEx very weak today. Man, I'm surprised at how weak FedEx is today. Nice bearish pattern on the daily chart, too. But I can't believe it's not getting more of a bounce and hasn't gotten more of a bounce with the market. Take a look at IWM, guys. All right, IWM strong move today off a gap down, but look at how far away it is. I mean, if we look at the Qs, IWM, DIA, which is the Dow, and the SPY, I find it fascinating because small caps, which usually in markets lead, they're actually lagging here big time. All right, and that should be a concern, and that's also something that I'm kind of monitoring. I actually have a nice little level here on the IWM. I might have to pick up a little short later today on the IWM. I have to say, that does look semi-interesting to me. All right, so I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll post it in the hot charts and alerts if I decide to take that later today as a shorting opportunity. But definitely somewhat of a heads up there. I think that's very interesting on IWM. Next up, if we take a look at the DIA, look at the DIA, how far away that is from the highs from early January. And then if you look at the SPY, SPY is not that far away, but it's still not back to those highs yet. Okay, and then if you look at the Qs, NASDAQ is definitely leading here. The NASDAQ is higher, so NASDAQ is making a new high. And one thing I think it's worth pointing out here, guys, take a look at this high pivot here. All right, this actually tells us that maybe it has a little bit more upside to go. Not much, but I can see the Qs going up another dollar or so. Because, again, if you connect these highs right here, you actually get a trend line right around the 90.50 level. So it's actually about 85 cents higher. So we'll see. Maybe we can extend that. I think I'd definitely look to a possible short there on the Qs if it gets up to that trend line again, as that's been a major trend line and continues to be such from history. And again, we're just looking at short-term history over the last 6 months or so. That was a major level. Funny thing is, actually, if you extend it here, you can actually see the trend line kind of right along there, which means it's an even more powerful trend line. Wow, that's an amazing trend. Look at that. Yeah, guys, I'm gonna short the Qs here if it gets to about 90.5. 90.5 is the spot. All right, just keep that in the back of your minds. That's going to be a great, great level there on the Qs. Absolutely fantastic level. All right, I think that's about it for today, folks. If we just flip back to the spiders, it's float mode. It's a crazy snowstorm. I know it seems so weird, right? It seems so weird to think that a snowstorm could have that much impact and a positive impact. I think a lot of average investors would think that the snowstorm would have a negative impact on the markets, but it's actually having a positive one. And again, you can see all the way up here how the markets are just in float mode for sure, and they continue to be so. So we'll continue to monitor this situation here as the markets float up. Again, tomorrow is the day before a 3-day weekend, and then next Tuesday, Wednesday, I think that's where you really start to look for some shocks to the market to come back in. And again, what I'm going to do is just going to slowly accumulate some more positions on the short side and just build my short base again after I sold all my longs over the last few days. And before that, I sold all my shorts on the big drop, and so, or covered, I should say. And you just want to continue to rinse and repeat. Essentially, that's how you trade a market. Take care, guys. Come join us here at InTheMoneyStocks.com.